So when we tune in, what I would like to do and what I'm trying to do is see if I can feel her rhythm. So craniosacral rhythm will feel a bit like a pulse, or even kind of like even sort of like a wave. But you will be able to feel it in your hand as kind of like a woo, 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 woo kind of thing. Some horses are very slow, some horses are very fast. The same is true for people. But what I'm looking for is for her to be able to feel that. And I'm going to wait as long as it takes. And I also would like for her to, I would love to feel her soften in my hands before I move on, which sometimes can take a while. So another way to possibly feel craniosacral rhythm is heat. And I don't mean heat as in like a pain type of heat. I mean like it's a heat that's alive, if that makes sense. It's a heat that comes and goes. Sometimes it can also feel like a tingle, like an electrical tingle. Okay, so I'm starting to get that now. So I'm going to move to whole hold. And again, just be patient. Not every horse is going to stand beautifully for you, and that's okay. I'd rather see you take your time and handle it in a kind and professional way than just kind of blow through your releases just for the sake of doing them. Most clients will appreciate that as well. So what I'm looking for is signs of release. She may or may not release, and that's okay. As far as like an obvious like, yes, that's it, you know. So what we can look for would be for her to be doing a lot of blinking. You know, she might yawn, she may sigh, she may drop her head, or she might just generally soften. Or of course, you know, all the big ones like the shaking, the yawning, you know, the tossing the head, things like that. So what I'm looking for is for her to, can she or will she soften? If I can start to feel her soften, then I might hang out a little bit longer, but that might be all she gives me, and that's fine. Like I said, I want to see if I can feel that rhythm, if it goes anywhere. If it doesn't, it doesn't mean that you weren't effective. It could just mean that that area is so blocked because of past trauma, whether physical, mental, emotional. And it could just mean that your horse or the client's horse needs more sessions. So she's very, very tight right now. I can actually feel her ear pushing on me. So she could be listening to me, or she could be pushing tension into me. So I'm gonna hang out here as long as it takes for her to get soft. And all I'm looking for is for her to soften. She does not have to, you know, do anything really big or crazy for this to be an effective session. The one thing that she is doing is she's getting closer. She's pushing closer to me. The other thing to keep in mind though is when you have your hands on the horse, there is a kind of like a weight to your hands. You can either do craniosacral or CST with a bit of weight in your hands, a little bit of pressure, so the horse really physically feels you. Although some horses really appreciate very, very light touch. So kind of experiment based on the horse that you're working with. Horses that tend to be more high strung really appreciate a more solid and firm feel. where horses that tend to be much more timid, much more quiet, tend to prefer something that's a lot lighter. So just kind of experiment with that and see what you get. Okay, so she's starting to get soft, so I'm going to let that go. Other things that we can look at, again, is the blinking. You know, is she, she's very loose in the lip. So that can all show me that she's loosening up. Other things that you can do is in between a hold, if you feel like the horse is really holding on to a lot of tension, you can step away and let them process it, see what they think about it. They may release then, or the horse may go through a very big release at the very end of the session. So it really just depends on the horse. Don't get discouraged if they don't, start yawning and rolling their eyes and all sorts of, big, demonstrative releases with every single hold. Not every horse is going to be like that. And don't feel discouraged as though that you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing if you don't see those. So I'm going to ask that she step away from the camera a little bit. And I'm going to go into these cervicals. So some horses will not be very cooperative when some horses are not very cooperative when you do these holds. And a lot of the time it's because you're working with a prey animal and they're concerned about being attacked. They're concerned about being damaged. They know how delicate their bodies are, and so sometimes it's a behavioral thing, just a simple behavioral thing. There was a release. Sometimes it is more due to just they don't really understand what's going on, and so they're very concerned and they want to move away. You got to remember, horses aren't really afraid of predators. They're afraid of predatory behavior, and holding them like this could be predatory behavior from a horse's perspective. So just be patient. Good girl. The other thing that I'm going to be trying to be cognizant of is her breathing. Is she slowing down? Is she sighing? Is she blowing out? Things like that. So if you don't feel any rhythm, again, it could be that something is blocked, and it may mean that you need to do more than one session in order for the horse to release those areas. So before I go to her shoulders, one thing I need you to understand is when you do videos, I need to see what you're doing, regardless of what side you're on. Ideally, I want to be able to see your hands at all times, just so that I can confirm that you are in fact doing that hold. So there's nothing wrong with moving your horse around so that the camera can pick you up. Like I said, I'm going to place my hands right here, one just below the point of her shoulder, the other at the top of her scapula. Good girl. And I'm just going to try to see what she'll do for me. It's not necessarily a problem if the horse is blocking my view, as long as I was able to see what you're doing. Alternatively, I could turn her sideways to the camera, but I also would like for you to see her face, to see her facial response and reactions. Girl. She has flies at the moment, so the other thing to keep in mind is that just because a horse is doing something that looks like a release doesn't necessarily mean that it is. Good girl. Okay, so I'm going to call that a good release for that shoulder. Now, I could go to the opposite side and continue there, or I could continue on this side. Sort of just depends on what you feel and how you feel you want to go through your flow. It doesn't matter if you do things in order as long as you have every step present. okay? So the next thing I'm going to do is her thoracic. One hand at the wither or behind the wither, and one hand on her chest. So I'm going to do the same thing. I want to see if I can feel any changes in her rhythm. If I can feel any, pulsing heat, if I can feel any electrical type pulsing, if I can feel kind of like almost like you can feel their pulse or their heartbeat, but it's not quite as strong. And I want to see if she will release for me. She may or may not. It's okay if she doesn't. But I would like to see if I can get that release. Now, she may be more concerned about the flies at the moment, which is unfortunate. So one thing I'm seeing right now is her lips are quivering. So she's kind of tight pursed at the moment. Her bottom lip is looser than the top lip, and she's kind of got this, it's like quivering at the moment. Now, if I hung out here long enough, she might release, or if I step away, she might release. So I'm going to try stepping away and seeing what she does. So some ways that horses might release is they check in with you physically. What I mean by that is they look at you, they touch you, they want to, make physical contact with you. So that might be something that she does. That lip is still quivering, and she's getting very sleepy looking. So what I'm seeing is that she's getting very relaxed. So part of the purpose of CST is to release tension, therefore allowing the body to relax. But she's gotten a lot, good girl, so that's checking in. She didn't nip, she just touched me. So some horses have a lot of trauma when it comes to birthing. And so when you move your hands back here to the birth area, many horses will show either a lot of displaced behaviors. Some might start crying, some might start nipping or biting the ear. They might start trying to nip you. They might, shudder or shake their skin. So horses that have a lot of trauma, and Rose is one of those horses that used to be ridden in a kind of an unfair way. Those horses might show more obvious signs of trauma and might show more obvious signs of release. So moving her head side to side, she might be loosening up this area of her thoracic vertebrae and her rib cage. So that might be something that she's doing. Again, just observing her. She is quivering her lip again. So I'm going to take that as a release. Good girl. And I'm going to see what she does with that. Now, you can keep an entire flow if you want to, but you don't necessarily have to. Like I said, use your intuition, see how things work. Oh, good girl. See how things work for you. So part of that is because of flies. Part of that is because she's releasing. So the next thing that I'm going to do is work down her body, and then I'm going to go to her legs, and I'm going to go to the opposite side. Or I can go do the opposite side and then do her legs and her tail last. Whatever I feel is going to be more balancing for her. So I'm going to come back here, and I'm going to orient her so that you can see more of what I'm doing. Like I said, there is nothing wrong with moving your horse as many times as you need to in order to get the best angle, to be able to see what's going on. Ideally, I would love for you to be able to see the horse's face because they are so expressive, but if you can't, there's nothing wrong with that as long as you're telling me what you're seeing, what you're feeling, those kinds of things. All right. So I'm also not going to block the camera. I'm going to do my best not to block the camera. So we're going to do the lumbar release, which is sometimes a little bit awkward for some horses because it's a very sensitive area. They don't always want to be touched. So my right hand is, her back just released right underneath my hand, so that's cool. Some horses don't like their tummy touched, especially at their navel. My hand down here is at her navel. Rose also has a lot of fly bites down here, so she's probably going to move only because it feels really awkward to her. And like I said, if the horse is moving around a lot or they're moving away from the camera, feel free to stop and place them back up here, but do it in a gentle way, not in a, you're doing the wrong thing kind of way. We don't want to ever make, especially CST, we don't ever want to make the horse wrong for their reactions, unless it's a really big behavioral problem. But if it's just the horse is moving because they feel kind of awkward and they're not really comfortable with something, you don't want to make them wrong because it will make it more difficult for the horse to want to release. Part of this is trust thing. So the more the horse feels comfortable and safe, the more likely they will be to release. So her breathing got a lot slower. She's also looking at me. That lip is still quivering. Checking in. Okay, so she's blowing out a lot. There's also, I can feel gut sounds. So, good girl. I'm going to go now to sacral. So I'm going to put my hand, palm of my hand on her sacrum, and I'm going to put my other hand about at her udder, or as close to that area as possible. And I'm going to allow, there we go, that's a nice release. Okay, so now I'm going to move to this side. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to do it bilaterally. For your case study videos, I don't necessarily need to see both sides, but in a real session, you will do both sides. So ideally, I want to see both sides. Same thing, I'm going to do her shoulder here. Let me reorient her so you can see better. If you can hear cooing in the background, that is my son. Okay, so same deal. I'm going to find the back of the scapulum. I am going to find the point of her shoulder. I'm going to put my hands right here, and we are going to see if we can feel any changes. Now she's shaking her skin underneath me, so I want to try to ignore that because I know some of it's from bugs, and I know some of it is some of it is due to the touch. So again, there we go. That's a nice release there. Okay. So same thing here. I'm going to put my hand on her chest. I'm going to put my other hand behind her wither or head of her wither, whichever feels best to you. And I'm going to see what kind of releases that she gives me. Signs of relaxation. I just got bit. Signs of relaxation. And I want to see what she's going to give me. If she can give me or show me any sign that she's relaxing. So she's doing a little bit more blinking, doing a little more of that lip quivering. So Rose is a very stoic horse. She doesn't usually release big, and if she does, it's because something really, really big made a shift. So like I said, I'm going to wait until... There we go. She's starting to lick and chew, but she's doing it without moving her lips. So I'm going to call that a release. All right, hang on a minute.